On the surface, my life looked perfect. I was married to Josh, successful, charming, and the kind of man who made heads turn at dinner parties. Our friends called us a power couple, envying our shared jokes, our polished photos, the way we fit together so seamlessly. But beneath the surface, it wasn't as perfect as it seemed. Josh was always busy. His work in real estate consumed him, leaving little time for anything else. And when he wasn't answering emails or taking calls, he was distracted, half listening when I spoke, his eyes constantly darting to his phone. At first, I told myself it was just a phase. Work was demanding, and I wanted to be supportive. But as weeks turned into months, the distance between us grew, and my attempts to bridge the gap went unnoticed. Dinner dates were canceled. Weekend plans were rescheduled. And on the rare occasions we did sit together, the silence was louder than any conversation. It was on one of those quiet afternoons, when Josh was locked away in his office, that I found her. I'd been scrolling through social media, mindlessly liking photos and watching short videos, when a notification popped up, a new suggested friend. Her name was Lily. Her profile picture was simple, a candid shot of her laughing in a sunlit park. For a second, I thought it was my photo. Same dark hair, same almond-shaped eyes, same sharp cheekbones. It wasn't just a resemblance, it was uncanny. Curiosity pulled me in. I clicked on her profile, and as I scrolled through her posts, the uneasy feeling in my chest grew stronger. There she was in a sleek black dress, the same style I wore to Josh's office party last month. In another post, she sat at a small cafe table, a latte in hand, the same brand of scarf I'd received from Josh as an anniversary gift draped around her neck. And then I saw it. A photo of Lily in the very cafe Josh and I used to frequent for weekend brunches. But it wasn't just the setting that stopped me cold. Sitting across from her, leaning slightly forward with that same easy charm I'd fallen for years ago, was Josh. His hand rested on the table, so close to hers that their fingers were almost touching. My stomach twisted. The caption read, "When the company is good, the coffee tastes better." I closed the app, my hands trembling. There had to be an explanation. Maybe it was a client meeting. Maybe I was overreacting. But the more I thought about it, the more the pieces didn't add up. Josh hadn't mentioned meeting anyone for coffee. And Lily wasn't just a random stranger. She was a shadow of me. I opened her profile again, examining the photos more closely. Her smile, her posture, even the way she held her coffee cup, it all mirrored me, as if she'd been studying my life and stepping into it piece by piece. Was I imagining things? Or was there something deeper, something darker happening right under my nose? That evening, when Josh came into the living room, I tried to keep my voice steady. "How was your day?" I asked, watching him carefully. "Busy," he said, loosening his tie. "You know how it is." He kissed me on the cheek and headed toward the kitchen. I hesitated, the words bubbling at the back of my throat. "Who's Lily? Why didn't you tell me about the coffee shop? Why is she, me?" But I stayed silent, unsure if I wanted to know the answers. As I watched him pour himself a drink, laughing at something on his phone, the distance between us felt insurmountable. And for the first time in our marriage, I felt truly invisible. The next morning, I couldn't shake the image of that photo. Josh, smiling over coffee with Lily, my double. The more I thought about it, the more questions swirled in my mind. Who was she? How did she know Josh? And why did she look so much like me? I opened her profile again, determined to find answers. Her posts were a curated masterpiece of casual elegance, shots of her sipping wine at rooftop bars, laughing at sunsets, and posing in trendy boutiques. But as I scrolled further, a chill ran down my spine. There were too many coincidences. The scarf I'd seen her wearing. It wasn't just similar, it was the exact same one Josh had given me for our anniversary. The boutique where she'd posted about shopping. It was my favorite, a place I'd taken Josh to countless times. And then there were the captions. One read, "Life is better with a little chaos." I had written almost the exact same words on my Instagram just weeks ago. Another said, "Love is in the details." Josh had whispered that phrase to me on our wedding day. My hands trembled as I clicked on her tagged photos. A few pictures were taken at familiar locations, our favorite restaurant, the park where Josh and I used to picnic. It wasn't just that she looked like me. She was living my life. I dug deeper, clicking through the accounts of people who had liked or commented on her photos. That's when I found it. One of her tagged posts listed the name of the company where she worked. I recognized the logo immediately. It was the same real estate firm where Josh had been promoted just a year ago. Lily wasn't just some random woman. She worked in Josh's office. I waited for Josh to leave the house before I let myself spiral. I went to the firm's website, scrolling through the employee profiles. And there she was, Lily Carson, marketing coordinator. Her professional photo was polished but unmistakably her. That same self-assured smile, the perfect wave of dark hair framing her face. How had Josh never mentioned her? I tried to tell myself it didn't mean anything. Offices were full of people who barely interacted. But something about Lily's presence in his life didn't feel incidental. The next time I checked her social media, I noticed something else, something I hadn't seen before. Her posts were timestamped. I clicked on the photo of her and Josh at the cafe. The date was from 2 weeks ago. That same day, Josh had told me he was working late on a property deal. My stomach twisted. I scrolled further, my heart racing with every click. Another post caught my eye, Lily sitting on a bench in the park, her hands wrapped around a cup of coffee. The caption read, "A perfect morning to reflect." I recognized the bench immediately. It was the same one Josh and I had taken engagement photos on years ago. This wasn't just a coincidence. This was deliberate. When Josh came home that evening, I watched him closely, searching for any sign of guilt. He seemed relaxed, casually asking about my day and talking about a deal he was finalizing. "Do you ever work with someone named Lily?" I asked suddenly, trying to keep my tone light. He looked up from his phone, his brow furrowing slightly. "Lily?" "Yeah, she's in marketing." "Why?" I shrugged, forcing a smile. "Oh, I just came across her on social media. She's very photogenic." Josh chuckled, his attention already back on his phone. "Yeah, she's always taking pictures. It's kind of her thing." I nodded, pretending to drop the subject. But inside, my mind was racing. Josh's reaction had seemed casual enough, but something about it didn't sit right with me. If Lily was just another coworker, why hadn't he ever mentioned her before? That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, the pieces of the puzzle slowly coming together. Lily wasn't just a woman who happened to look like me. She was someone who had inserted herself into every corner of my life, my places, my style, my husband. And I was going to find out why. The hardest part was keeping calm. Every fiber of my being wanted to confront Josh, to demand answers, to scream, "Why haven't you told me about her?" But something held me back. What if I was wrong? What if this was all in my head, a web of suspicion I'd spun myself into? So, I decided to wait. To watch. The first few days of observing Josh were uneventful. He kept to his routine, early mornings in the office, late nights answering emails. He smiled when he talked to me, kissed me goodbye like always. But then I noticed the phone. Josh had always been glued to his phone, it was part of his job, but now, there was something different. He'd keep it face down on the table during dinner, his fingers twitching toward it whenever it buzzed. At night, he'd take it with him into the bathroom or slip it under his pillow, something he'd never done before. I told myself it didn't mean anything. I had no proof. But the seed of doubt was growing. I started checking Lily's social media daily, scrolling through her posts for any sign of Josh. Most of the photos were harmless, her in trendy outfits, snapshots of brunch with friends, selfies at the gym. But every so often, a post would make my stomach drop. One evening, she posted a picture of herself at a cafe. It wasn't just any cafe, it was the one where Josh and I had gone on our first date. Her caption read, "Some places never lose their charm." The next day, she posted a photo of a park bench, the same one from her earlier post. This time, the caption said, "Peaceful mornings make everything better." It was more than just coincidence now. I started digging into her tagged posts, looking for connections. Her friends, her colleagues, even the accounts of random commenters, none of it gave me the clarity I was looking for. Lily seemed to float between groups, always charming, always just out of reach. But then I found something. In one of her photos, taken at what appeared to be a rooftop bar, there was a reflection in the glass behind her. It was blurry, but I recognized Josh's silhouette instantly. My heart raced. Josh had told me he was working late that night. I didn't sleep that night. My mind was a storm of unanswered questions, each one more damning than the last. The next morning, I waited until Josh was in the shower to pick up his phone. My hands trembled as I unlocked it, scrolling quickly through his messages. Most were work-related, just as I expected. But then I found her. "Lily, thanks for listening today. I don't know what I'd do without you. Josh, anytime. You know I'm here for you." The messages weren't overtly romantic, but the tone was unmistakably intimate. They spoke to each other often, early in the mornings, late at night, sometimes during the weekends when I thought Josh was working. I stared at the screen, my chest tightening. Lily writes, "I miss our talks. Can we meet for coffee soon?" Josh writes, "Let me check my schedule, but I'd love to." That evening, I couldn't look at Josh the same way. He smiled at me over dinner, telling me about a deal he was closing, but all I could hear were Lily's words, "I miss our talks." I wanted to scream, to demand answers. But instead, I nodded, smiled, and pretended everything was fine. Inside, though, I knew the truth. Lily wasn't just a shadow anymore. She was creeping into every corner of our lives, and I wasn't sure if I was strong enough to fight her. But I wasn't going to let her win. Not yet. The cafe buzzed with quiet energy as I walked through the door, my heart pounding like a war drum. I'd spent hours rehearsing this moment in my mind, every word, every reaction, but now that I was here, my confidence wavered. Lily was already there, sitting at a corner table, her phone in one hand and a latte in the other. She looked up as I approached, her expression shifting from polite curiosity to something sharper, more guarded. "Hi," I said, sliding into the seat across from her. Her eyes widened briefly, but she recovered quickly, setting her phone down. "Emma, right?" she asked, her voice calm, but her smile didn't reach her eyes. "I didn't expect to see you here." "I bet you didn't," I replied, folding my hands on the table. "Josh isn't coming." Lily blinked, her composure faltering for just a moment. "Oh," she said, then gave a small laugh. "I'm not sure what you mean." "Josh and I." "Don't," I interrupted, my voice sharper than I intended. "Don't pretend you don't know why I'm here. I've seen the messages, Lily. I've seen the photos. You're not just some random coworker." She leaned back in her chair, her smile fading. "You've been watching me." "No," I said, leaning forward. "You've been watching me. Following me. Living my life." Her face stiffened, but her eyes flickered with something, recognition? Guilt? She glanced around the cafe, as if looking for an escape. "Why?" I demanded, my voice low but firm. "Why are you doing this? Why are you acting like me?" For a moment, she didn't answer. Then, slowly, she leaned forward, resting her elbows on the table. "Because your life is perfect," she said quietly. "At least, it looks that way." I froze, taken aback by her honesty. "I see you," she continued, her voice trembling slightly. "The way you carry yourself, the way Josh looks at you, like you're his whole world." I wanted that. I wanted to feel what it's like to be someone like you. To have what you have. "You wanted my life?" I said, my voice rising. So you just decided to steal it? Lily's lips pressed into a thin line. I didn't steal anything. Josh and there's nothing going on between us. I mean, yes, we talk, and maybe I push the boundaries, but it's not like she trailed off, her cheeks flushing. I stared at her, my mind racing. Was she telling the truth? Could it really be that simple, just a lonely woman envying someone else's life? You crossed a line, I said finally, my voice steady but cold. Messaging my husband late at night, showing up at places that mean something to us. That's not admiration, Lily. That's obsession. She flinched but didn't deny it. The bell above the door jingled, and my heart sank as Josh walked in. His eyes scanned the room, landing on us almost immediately. Emma, he said, his brow furrowing as he approached. What's going on? Lily straightened, her composed mask slipping back into place. Josh, she said, her voice overly cheerful. We were just talking. Talking? Josh repeated, looking between us. What are you doing here, Emma? I could ask you the same thing, I shot back. His face tightened, a flicker of something crossing his eyes, surprise, guilt, or maybe anger. I told you I was meeting a coworker. What are you doing here? I'm here, I said, standing up, because your coworker has been playing house with my life. Josh looked at Lily, confusion clouding his expression. What is she talking about? Lily smiled, but it was strained. Emma's upset. She thinks. Stop, I snapped, cutting her off. No more games. Tell him the truth, Lily. She hesitated, her eyes darting to Josh. For a moment, she seemed genuinely unsure, caught between her lies and whatever shred of dignity she had left. Josh, she said softly, I didn't mean to cause any trouble. I admire what you and Emma have. I didn't mean for it to go this far. He stared at her, his face unreadable. Lily, what the hell are you talking about? I turned to Josh, my frustration boiling over. She's been following me, Josh. Copying me. Showing up at places that are special to us. And you've been letting her, whether you realize it or not. I haven't done anything wrong, he said defensively. No? I said, crossing my arms. Then explain the late-night texts. The coffee dates. The photo of you two at our cafe. Josh opened his mouth to respond but stopped, his gaze dropping to the floor. It wasn't like that, he said finally, his voice quieter. We're just friends. She needed someone to talk to, and I. And you what? I pressed. You let her talk to you about her life while ignoring mine? Josh flinched, and for the first time, I saw a crack in his armor. Emma, he said, his voice heavy, I swear, nothing happened. But, maybe I let it get too close. I didn't see it until now. The cafe felt suffocating. I looked between Josh and Lily, the man I'd loved and the woman who'd tried to become me. My anger, my heartbreak, my confusion, they all collided in one overwhelming wave. I can't do this right now, I said, grabbing my bag. Josh, you need to figure out where your boundaries are. And Lily, I turned to her, my voice sharp. Stay out of my life. Neither of them stopped me as I walked out. As I stepped into the cold evening air, I felt a strange mix of emotions, anger, relief, and something else I couldn't quite place. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. Josh didn't come home that night, and I didn't ask where he went. My phone stayed silent, except for one message from him. We need to talk. Tomorrow. I spent the night replaying everything in my head, the messages, Lily's confession, the look on Josh's face when he walked into the cafe. Anger simmered just beneath the surface, but so did something else, hope. I wasn't sure why. Maybe it was the way Josh had looked at me, like he realized for the first time what his actions had done. Or maybe it was because, despite everything, I still loved him. The next morning, he came home, looking like he hadn't slept. He sat at the dining table, his hands clasped tightly, his face drawn. I'm sorry, he said before I could speak. I folded my arms, leaning against the counter. For what, Josh? For lying? For flirting? For letting some woman think she could step into my life? All of it, he said quietly. You're right. I screwed up. I didn't mean to, but I did. Why? I asked, my voice trembling. Why didn't you tell me about her? Why did you let it get this far? Josh sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. I don't know. At first, it was nothing. She was new at the office, and she seemed fascinated by me. By us. She asked questions about our life, about you, and I thought she was just being friendly. And then I noticed how much she admired me, he admitted, his voice thick with guilt. She made me feel important, like I wasn't just another guy with a job and a mortgage. And yeah, it felt good. But it wasn't real. I never wanted her. Not the way I want you. The words hung in the air, heavy and bittersweet. Do you even hear yourself? I said, my voice sharper than I intended. You let her into our lives because it made you feel good? Do you have any idea how humiliating that is for me? I know, he said quickly. I know I hurt you. And I know I should have set boundaries, but I didn't. I didn't see what she was doing until it was too late. For a moment, I just stared at him, my anger bubbling dangerously close to the surface. But beneath it all, I saw the man I married, the man who, for all his flaws, had never stopped loving me. You need to end it, I said finally, my voice firm. I will, he said without hesitation. I already told her yesterday that I can't see or talk to her anymore. Not at work, not anywhere. That's not enough, I said. I need more than promises, Josh. I need to know you're willing to fight for this. For us. His eyes met mine, and for the first time in weeks, I saw real determination there. I'll do whatever it takes. Counseling, therapy, whatever you need. We spent the rest of the day talking. For the first time in what felt like forever, Josh listened, really listened. I told him about the loneliness I'd felt, the distance that had grown between us, and how Lily had only made it worse. He admitted that he'd taken me for granted, assuming I'd always be there, no matter what. And as painful as it was to hear, I appreciated his honesty. By the time the sun set, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time, relief. That night, as we lay in bed, Josh reached for my hand. I'm not perfect, he said softly. But I love you, Emma. I've always loved you. And I'm ready to prove it. I looked at him, searching for any hint of doubt. But all I saw was sincerity. We'll see, I said, my voice tinged with cautious hope. This isn't going to be easy, Josh. But if you're willing to put in the work, so am I. He nodded, his grip on my hand tightening. I won't let you down again. It wasn't a perfect resolution, and it wouldn't fix everything overnight. But it was a start. And as I drifted off to sleep that night, I realized something. I wasn't just fighting for my marriage. I was fighting for myself, for the woman I wanted to be, the woman I deserved to be. And this time, I wasn't going to let anyone take that away from me. The weeks that followed were both the hardest and the most hopeful of my life. Josh and I started couples therapy, and for the first time in years, we were having the kind of conversations that went deeper than dinner plans and work schedules. He made changes, real changes. He left work at the office, set boundaries with his coworkers, and took time to be present at home. He listened more, joked more, and, most importantly, he let me see his vulnerabilities. We began to rebuild the intimacy we'd lost, piece by fragile piece. There were moments when I felt like we'd turned a corner, like we were stronger than ever. But then there were the nights. In the darkness, my mind played tricks on me. I'd dream of Lily, her face blurring into mine, her voice echoing with laughter that wasn't my own. I'd wake up in a cold sweat, the weight of her presence lingering long after the dream faded. Josh would hold me close, whispering reassurances, but I couldn't bring myself to tell him what haunted me. How could I, when I wasn't sure he wouldn't see it as a sign that I doubted him? One evening, I sat alone in the living room, scrolling through my phone. Josh had fallen asleep early after a long day at work, and the house was quiet except for the faint hum of the heater. I hadn't checked Lily's social media in weeks, deliberately avoiding the temptation. But tonight, curiosity got the better of me. Her profile hadn't changed much. The same curated photos, the same carefully crafted captions. I almost felt relieved until I saw the newest post. It was a picture of Lily at a cozy, candlelit restaurant. She was smiling, her head tilted slightly as if caught mid-laugh. And sitting across from her was a man. He was strikingly handsome, with dark hair and a confident smile. His hand rested on hers, the gesture intimate and unmistakable. The caption read, "Some people are worth the wait." My chest tightened as I stared at the image. He wasn't Josh. I knew that. But there was something about him, his posture, his easy charm, that felt eerily familiar. I scrolled through the comments, looking for clues, but they were vague and unhelpful. Friends congratulating her, strangers complimenting the couple. Was this a new chapter for Lily? Had she moved on, found someone else to admire, to obsess over? Or was this something more calculated, more deliberate? I couldn't shake the uneasy feeling that this wasn't the end of her story. I closed my phone, setting it down on the coffee table, and leaned back against the couch. The house felt too quiet now, the kind of quiet that pressed down on you, heavy and suffocating. Josh stirred in the bedroom, calling my name softly. I got up and went to him, slipping into bed beside him as he instinctively wrapped an arm around me. His warmth, his steady breathing, grounded me, but the image of Lily's new photo lingered in my mind. As I closed my eyes, I reminded myself of the progress we'd made. Josh and I had chosen to fight for each other, and I wasn't going to let Lily, or anyone else, take that away from us. But deep down, I knew this: shadows don't disappear overnight. And sometimes, they don't disappear at all. Subscribe to never miss a new story and discover even more captivating tales.